In an ever-changing world, there is a demand for a voice, which echoes the thoughts and yearnings of the common man. That voice comes with truth. It's a voice of justice, and ultimately, the voice upholds peace. The Voice is Building Bridges, your radio advocacy platform aimed at building trust and fostering peaceful coexistence among communities, ethnicities, and groups. Building Bridges comes up every Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11:45 a.m. on J11.9 FM, an initiative of Take and Peace Desk with support by Bread for the World.
All right, it's a very good morning to you out there in the city of Jos. Today is it's Wednesday, and it's one of those days that we come your way to discuss very interesting issues regarding development, regarding peace, regarding social justice. The program, as usual, is called Building Bridges, and on this program, we call it your number one advocacy program. On this program, we advocate for peace, we advocate for social justice, we advocate for the rights of the downtrodden, we advocate for good governance, and lots more. So when we see issues that are supposed to be brought to the front burner, we do the needful to bring it up here, and that's our program. We advocate for all of that. And today, like always, we want to come your way with another talking point that has a strong bearing on our lives as a people, that has a strong bearing on our lives as Nigerians. We want to talk about leadership. However, we want to streamline it down to selection of leaders in this country. Now, we are all aware that the means to accessing political posts of leadership or political power, as some people will call it, is through a political party. Now, the constitution provides that you democratically you join a political party so you can be democratically elected to be a leader or to lead the people. However, the selection process for this entrance into some of those offices have been seen to be not clear or not on a shaky ground. It is said that when the foundation is faulty, then the house will not stand. Now, we want to rejig, want to probe the selection processes of our political parties in Nigeria. We want to also look at how to do their elections, how they conduct their elections. Are they free and fair? Is it a reflection of what we have as a leadership in this nation? We'll be talking this and many more as the program goes on. And again, like I will always do, I don't do this alone. I have a very interesting personality. He is a public affairs commentator, a development worker, a social justice advocate. He wears many caps, and he is with me in the studio. His name is, he's no other than Dr. Prince Charles Dixon. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Rhett. It's a pleasure to be with you in the studio, and of course, this is the little we can contribute to nation building. Good morning, and good morning, our listeners out there.
Yes, I can see a lot of people celebrating you while you come in. They were saying "Voice of the Masses." I was like, yes, we have another voice for the masses. It's good to have you around. It's always a pleasure for our listeners to have you. Yes, on this program we have a public interest corner. Now, on our public interest corner today, we will want to look at the inflation rate of this country. Nigeria has been going through a lot, especially when it comes to inflation. Now that boils down to the cost of living, high cost of living in the country. You can put it side by side, the high cost of commodities in the market. Now, what we are trying to bring to the front burner today here is basic amenities. I mean, basic bare necessities are extremely high. And in the beginning of the year, you will recall that a kilo of meat can go for 800, 900, 1,000 naira. But as I'm talking to you now, it goes for 1,800 naira, sometimes even 2,000. Recently, the price of cooking gas is set to, is soon to be up. In a few days' time, or some people have actually hiked their own price of cooking gas with almost 22.5 or 22.8% as at what we used to buy. When you reflect again, you realize that last year you can buy a crate of egg for as low as 700, 800, 900 naira. Today, a crate of egg goes for at least 1,400 or 500 naira, and that's scary. So we want to ask, what have we been doing? What policies, what monetary policies have the government been doing? Now, if you look at it, the dollar to the naira is there's a huge gap. The dollar goes for at least 500 naira now in the black market, and when you begin to consider some of those things, you begin to look at our leaders, those in leadership, sensitive enough to the plight of the people. And on this corner, we want to plead that, look, if you are in a position of leadership, we plead that you sit down and look into the plight of the people you are leading. My colleague, my senior colleague, he prefers that name, will always tell me that, look, John, we are all in government, but we have a few people leading us. So now leadership is very, very key to this. So I want to call on leadership that, please, if you are aware of this hike in price, is it as a result of the inflation? Please, we will need you to be sensitive to the plight of people. Come back to the table. Have policies that will have a direct impact, an inflect on the lives of the common man. And I will allow Prince Charles to throw a word on this high cost of living and some of this public issues.
I think it's a two-edged sword, and sadly it's unfortunate. While on one hand we're talking about high cost, rising prices for food commodities particularly, and beyond these increase in prices is that there is no commensurate increase in earning power.
True.
So, it would be one thing to discuss this high prices vis-a-vis an increase in earning power, but sadly, the true situation we find ourselves is that prices have gone up. Earning power have drastically reduced.
True.
It's I think I'd be safe to say, in the light of a possible third wave, we're still in the COVID economy.
Yeah.
So it's not. I can't hold my head high and say in a post-COVID economy, because we still find ourselves in that same economy. So if you look at it against what has happened in the COVID economy, job losses in the tourism sector, the hoteliers, private sector, people have had to streamline their operations. People have had to, redundancy has become commonplace in most private practice and private organizations. Even government has had to reevaluate stock in terms of labor. And we've seen clashes, whether be it in Kaduna, whether be it in Bauchi, Gombe, even on the plateau in terms of earning power. This is against a system that was battling to pay the 30,000 minimum wage pre-COVID. And so you can begin to see that the question should be, is 1,000 naira a day realistic? That's for those who are even paying that amount of money. It's a very big no. So it's sad, and I can't add more than the clarion call which you've made to our leaders who are actually leading, because one of the things that we've often said in platforms like this is that there is a total disconnect from those who lead us and what happens on ground. So presumably, for lack of a better example, I use a governor. A governor doesn't go to the market. He doesn't know some of these conversations we're having.
True.
And not because he can't know, but because the question is, how many governors make out time to go to the market periodically? I can say authoritatively that there is none among the 36 governors who would say that in the last 7 months he has gone to the market once every month to personally see how the variations in prices have happened. And I can classically give you the example of eggs. At the beginning of this year, eggs were going for a little close to about 1,000 naira. As we speak, it's 1,500. So that tells you that if nothing is done at the end of the year, eggs could possibly go for 2,000. And we use such things not because they are elite food, but that's a component that goes into every other kind of food. Look at beans, for example. Beans sold for about 150 per measure. It's going for about 800, 900, almost 1,000. So, and these are what we call common edibles.
Yes.
I had this conversation and it smacked over time. There used to be a time when gas was an elite
Elitist
cooking fuel. And then we were told everybody had to transit to gas.
Yes.
And everybody left kerosene because kerosene was increasingly becoming more expensive than gas itself.
Yes.
But now gas is also chasing kerosene. So it's a lose-lose for the common man. And when we say the common man, we all know who the common man is. And the sad part of it is that the common man is of the vast majority of the suffering populace. And it's a sad story. And I think another question is, there's no how we can discuss this food prices soaring high without looking at the insecurity, because Benue just issued, and that's the food basket of the nation, a clarion call that there would be a food crisis because people can't go to the farms.
Yes. In as much as that's a very, very major issue. Today, I would just want us to focus on this leadership, because you've said a lot. Now, that's the size of our package for the public interest corner. We've made a clarion call. Please, political leaders, those in the position of power, we advocate, we plead, and we call on you to please be sensitive to the plight of people. Let us come back and look at those things. It can work again. Thank you very much. That's the size of our package on the public interest corner. We are going to take a short break, and when we come back, the conversation continues in earnest. Keep listening.
In an ever-changing world, there is a demand for a voice which echoes the thoughts and yearnings of the common man. That voice comes with truth. It's a voice of justice, and ultimately, the voice upholds peace. The Voice is Building Bridges, your radio advocacy platform aimed at building trust and fostering peaceful coexistence among communities, ethnicities, and groups. Building Bridges comes up every Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11:45 a.m. on J11.9 FM, an initiative of Take and Peace Desk with support by Bread for the World.
All right, you're welcome back to the program. It's called Building Bridges, and my name is John Rett. I have Dr. Prince Charles Dixon here in the studio with me. And if you're just joining us, we will be talking about leadership, especially as it comes to selection of democratic leaders in their own democratic parties. We want to talk along internal democracy lines, because we believe, it has a strong reflection on our general democracy. Now, let me read up something I have here. It said that political parties are expressions of political pluralism. They contribute to the formation and expression of the will of the people and are fundamental instruments for political participation. Their creation and exercise of activities are free in so far as they respect the Constitution and the law. Their internal structure and operation must be democratic. Now, on the other hand, internal democracy is political parties are also known as intra-party democracy. They refer to levels and methods of including party members in decision making, deliberation within the party structure. Intra-party democracy is usually known to nurture citizens' political competencies and or producing more capable representatives, which in turn ensure that the party produces better policies and political programs. And having said that, we are in a country whereby of late we see a lot of political parties boasting to be the largest party in Africa, and it's in our situation it's called the winner takes it all, especially as Nigeria is. Now, first of all, we are aware that in advanced climes political parties have ideologies. Now, we want to put it side by side to what we have in Nigeria. Do our political parties have ideologies? And we also want to talk about the sanity of intra or internal democracy in party systems, the selection process. So, as someone who has done a little work on that, can you just throw a few light on what I've just mentioned?
I think for us as a country, there are several conjectures that are the reasons why we find ourselves where we are. And I think it's no means saying that what we have now is what we deserve. And that might be harsh, but these are the realities of the times and the realities of a nation building itself. Having said that much, it's interesting for our listeners out there to understand how party political formations came about in Nigeria as a country, right from when they were basically activist party, sorting for independence. Pan-Africanist move, where it wasn't just about Nigeria but the African continent, and then we evolved into where it was a fusion of party politics and the media, and then we left there when party politics became regional, and where parties were strategically representative of a people's culture, ethnicity, faith, religion, and all those dynamics. Fast forward that to what we had pre-79, where parties, it was more a free-for-all. I think that was basically our first experience in a democratic system that copied the American style. And I recall vividly when the late fella Nicola Putti had even applied to have a party. It was an all-comers affair, and I recall one of those parties, in part of his manifesto, had said it would provide air conditioners on the streets of Lagos. It was quite exciting. It was a new experience. And then take another very quick throw to the Babangida era, in which we had multiple truncated transition programs where political parties were given to Nigerians by the military structure. And then what we have today. Across that thread, several conversations might suffice. True. And one of such conversations is, it's laughable, but that's the reality of the Nigerian space. For example, ideology, you asked. We have political parties where the frame, the manifesto, the constructs, the legalese are framed by the same persons, the same crop of lawyers. This lawyer is well versed in constitutional matters, so he produces the manifesto and legal framework for Party A, and he's contracted to do the same thing for Party B. So there are no dichotomies in terms of ideology. Let's quickly stray into the NRC SDP era, in which even the government provided offices for the take-up of the party. So you would see, the question is, what were the criteria for you to belong to either party? They were really, in its real sense, lack of an ideological drive. And it might be a little bit of fallacy to just nail that coffin that there were no ideological drives. It was just our understanding of ideological drives. Some of the ideological drives for the party structures, as it were, to where we find ourselves, was basically interest, the political players, political families. We know the role the Yar'Aduas played in that construct at about that time. And then we knew the role that the so-called new breed politicians, when IBB banned a certain age from participating in politics. Yeah. So these have actually defined our own systems of politics. Again, I think advisory, it will be tough. We've had football faithfuls, even in the Nigerian construct. We've had people who are Mighty Jet supporters in and out, life and life, and they would have nothing to do with Plateau United. We've had people who are Gombe United, Wiki tourists, and in and out, rain, sunshine, they are not changing ships. So it's the same people if you look at the constructs, but then does it transit to our political spaces? Sadly, no. And because of the construct that gives us these political parties, then you can therefore assume that you cannot have intra-political democracy. The processes that throw up the candidacy of those who represent us becomes very faulty, because key amongst it, which the Electoral Act is trying to address, but it's still silent about, is issues such as electoral funding, where party structures, it's about he who pays the money, necessarily dictates the tone, asks for the offices. So party structures, party politics is seen as a methodology for sharing the largest, juice offices, portfolios that bring the proverbial milk. And so these are the understanding of party politics. And like you rightly put it, it's about he who's holding the ace card. Winner takes it or takes it all. A very docile opposition that simply waits waits until it gets back to power, vis-a-vis, and give and take. You now find out that this itself is a circle that does, because not just being vicious, my dear John and listeners, it also brings us to the issue of political prostitution, where we've seen political leaders or leaders who are heated to politicians belong to several parties in one election circle. I mean one election circle.
Yeah. So going by what you've said, I picked up something very interesting. Now, the evolution of our political party structures from the beginning has been faulty. If I will agree with you, it's all been government funded, and it has to do a lot with government. I remember reading a document on the Babangida administration then, when they banned a certain age group. I think that was 1992 or so. Yes. So looking at that, we now are in a democratic system, quote unquote, that have been over 20 years now. Averagely, I mean, on a normal level, normal playing ground, it's expected that by now we should have metamorphosed, or some changes, or some drastic reformation, so to say, should have been done to this system, because the intention of planting the seed is that at the end it grows to become something that you want to harvest. Now, with what we have now, would you want to say it's a direct reflection of what we had before, but are there changes that we should have made over time?
We can't make those changes because the structure itself doesn't allow it. And this is why...
When you say the structure, what do you mean? You mean the constitution? Or?
Yeah, there are who's and cry. Our electoral processes itself by default has fundamental disconnects. Some of us are advocates of the more the merrier, and people have often argued that, for example, if you look at a ballot paper with 90 political parties, it is cumbersome, and I do agree. But then I throw that question back. If you want to do a transfer from any bank, you would have as much as 30-40. If you include microfinance banks, you also have the same number of parties, options. So I don't know why sometimes, permit me, I think I'm within NBC rules to call out on Senator Ndume, who just only said that because of network, you will not be able to do electronic voting in some areas of the country. And then we ask people, really, how come is it that when ballot boxes get to every nook and cranny of the country, but security can get to those? We choose what gets to every nook and cranny of the country. I mean, tell us which part of Nigeria where you can basically have at least an SMS. So we can electronically gather results, but we can't electronically transmit. So it tells you that structurally there are things that are wrong. And then to the heart of your question, some of us have propagated that the more the merrier, and at the heart of the more the merrier is to create a construct, a system, a structure that allows, for example, let's take 17 local governments of Plateau State.
Yes.
BASA can perpetually be PRP or P whatever, perpetually in and out.
A standalone party.
Party. Kwampan can decide to be PFP, and it functions. And that's another way of saying independent candidature. It means that you don't have to be part of a ruling party. So we've created that phrase, a ruling party. A ruling party is like the working party, the chopping party. It's like the principal. He gives the rule, he dictates the pace. But you see, when you have, like they would say, scattered rain showers, it means that rain will touch everywhere. Development will touch everywhere.
And that's the word, development.
Yes. So when you have leadership at BASA level that isn't APC or PDP, and yet its resources are meant for the people of BASA, people are satisfied. And the idea behind that generally is it accommodates all the malfences and the norms of that people. So, for example, you could have in a predominantly, when I use that word intentionally and with caution, when I mean predominantly, there are areas in Nigeria State, the local governments, for example, the senatorial district, for example, where you has close to 95% Muslims. So there's nothing wrong in having an Islamic party there, in which the respect for law, humanity, justice, equality, equity for the 5% that are non-Muslims are guarded. So they can have a political party that does what? encompasses the culture, the faiths, the people of that area, without it necessarily being the party at the center.
Now, there's a caveat to that: if and when all of those elements you just mentioned will be adhered to.
That's where we now say there's a structural joinders. There is a structural joinders. Why is that structural joinders there? That term, the ruling party, the boss man, the man, the charge d'affaires, the chief financier. Why? Let me put it this way. Yeah, I mean, every other election cycle, there are the political mongers, the big businessmen. They've put money in PDP at one point in time. They've also put money in APC at one point in time, because for them it's an investment.
Okay.
So you see, when you have that structure where you cannot have checks and balances as to how these systems are run, then you would have that problem. You would have that problem. Let me take you to far away Cross River, where the governor there single-handedly took a decision to defect to another party. The host of his cabinet refused to do that. Days later, the property that housed his political party, inter alia, was changed immediately because he owned the property, or he was paying rent for the property. So the moment he ceased to be a political party member of that particular political party, it ceased. So you see, that tells you the ease at which some of these things happen.
So talking about learning, it is believed that we have learned some of these political practices from the larger democracies. Take, for example, the UK and the US. Those are two major countries that you look at for. Look at, especially when it comes to democracy. But it's like we are having a selective learning process. We not only selective, we have created our own style. Rather than, because someone said there's nothing bad in copying good. You can copy, but just copy it right. So we see to a large extent, or to a certain degree, that these political parties in these advanced climes where we learn from have a consistent pattern of doing things. You cannot just wake up from the Republican Party and just want to switch to be a Democrat overnight. It's not possible. It has to go. You have to go through, and even when you do that, you can't be given you can't come into your party and be given a card, or and be given and be a flag bearer within 6 months. 6 months. It's not possible. It doesn't work there. But here, like we've said, winner takes it all. It happens here. So my question is, where is the role of the people now? When I mean the people, I mean the locals in the selection process. How many people do we even have going into these political parties to begin with? Because the ideology, like we will say, is that the party belongs to all, to everybody. We call on a lot of people to come join the parties. But
let me answer this question controversially.
All right.
But again, with a sense of facts, and these are not opinions. Opinions are correct by everybody who holds them, but the facts themselves of the matter are sacred. Loretta Onoche. I smile, when people say we should have been there, we expect this. But, in our climb, it's still a learning process. And having mentioned her name, I was one of those who had no problem with her being an INEC commissioner. Wow. You didn't just say that. Yes, I said that. You see, we miss the point when we fixate on the wrong point. We miss the right point. Belonging to a political party is a fundamental human right. She has a right to be APC or PDP. What she needs is not party affiliation. The question we missed in the whole conversation was her sense of impartiality. The umpire of the American election is a card-holding carrying member of either the Democratic or the Republican Party. The problem is that the moment John becomes a policeman, there's a tendency we have a conversation, police blood don't enter John. Then you begin to ask, what is the police blood?
Not to collect money for road.
You just nailed it. So when you see a policeman who doesn't collect money, bribe, whatever, you're like, hi, this guy no be true police. This man different. Why he be like this? So the question is, have we grown to a point where, irrespective of your political affiliation, you will do what is right? And now this is why I brought Loretta as a conversation. It took us how many years? We actually even got to the Supreme Court for us to agree that civil servants had a right to participate in the political process. So you begin to ask yourself, at what point did we agree that the moment you became a civil servant, you couldn't participate in, because of the tendency for us to always get it right. And this is an answering your question. How do people participate in the political process? How can they bring in, how can they dictate? They cannot dictate when already the political processes handcuff them from participating. So until just only recently, at a certain level, in as much as you were a public servant, you could not even be a card-carrying member of a party. So that in itself diminishes the quality of representation, the quality of participation, now this is where it hurts. We have left the political processes at the very lower level to thugs.
True.
And then you don't expect that thugs will provide us otherwise.
Well, Doc, let me hold you there. Our phone lines are open. You can call on the number 090-55666699. You can call the number 090-9884-8848. So you can send me an SMS, strictly SMS, on the number 080-379-56883. An SMS on 080-379-56883. If you've been following the conversation, let's get your thought or let's get your call as to what we've been discussing with Dr. Priest Charles Dixon here. I have a lot and a long list of questions to ask him. However, let me allow you to be part of the program. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, you know the drills, please. So give us your name, where you're calling us from, and straight to the question or straight to your contribution.
Yes, I'm Mariam.
Mariam, speak up.
Yes, the problem of Nigerian democracy.
Please, where are you calling us from, Mariam? Please, where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from Bukuru.
All right, quickly, please.
Because when you see the way the government is operating, the judiciary is making us to lose hope in everything. Because if you see some judges, the way they rule of the law is unorganized, unprecedented. Somebody will be in court for more than 1 year. The courts are not even finished the case. It's unethical in democratic nation. Just for instance, UK and US, they are well in the rule of law. Nigeria, there is only like rule of law. That is my take.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Mariam from Bukuru, for your input. All right. Thank you very much. He talked about the judiciary and the long processes as to how kids stay in courts. Yes, we have another caller. Hello, good morning.
Hello. Good morning, it's Radio Mama. I'm calling from Lancaster. Good morning to your guests. They're speaking very well.
Good morning,
I think the greatest problem we have in Nigeria is we don't have strong institutions. If we have strong institutions, even if you're a card-carrying member, you can still occupy that or whatever position. But in Nigeria now it's different. So but what is the problem is, the major problem is most of the politicians practice with class principles. That's why you find them defective. Somebody is receiving the money in the afternoon, in the night, is back to 80s. And then the workers' rejection by the Smith. I take it with mixed feelings because they don't want to hurt Mr. President. They don't want to offend him. That was why they said it's federal character. So that was on that basis. So I keep wondering, when did our Senate start considering federal character?
That's a laughable one.
So now, do you know something now? It's not over because they gave a loophole. Now they didn't mention the partisan aspect of it. You might not even be a card-carrying member, and you participate. Even phone calls you make. Through phone calls, you can see people who are neutral. You can even know people who are partisan when they're not a card-carrying members, even by contributions on fair even. What are you talking about? They refuse to talk about that, so that by December when Amute, when the Mbu woman, when she retires, the Buhari might want to represent that name again, and we'll continue. Our eyes are open now. We are watching what will happen. What the hell are we talking about? Now, the last time I checked is Pakistan. That one is all over. She's even more bloody than Buhari. Let's see how we'll go.
All right.
Let's not give up on this country.
Let's not give up on this country, and God bless you too, Radio Mama. Always passionate, always coming up with the issues from a different perspective. I mean, she said we have strong, we don't have strong institutions, weak institutions, and that's where the fear of Nigeria comes. That we don't have an institution that checks whether a person is partisan or not, or whether the person will handle issues with bias or not. We have another caller. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. John.
Good morning, Radio Mama. Two. That's Madam Queen. Yes. Glad to have you.
You see, I want to comment on this.
Thank you.
I started from the issue of increases of increasing prices in the market. You see, contributed to bad governance, and insecurity is another one. We heard on radio the other day where people went to the farm that was with about over millions of naira, and they boosted all the stuff in the farm. So when you see that kind of thing that is happening, then how do you think that there will be food in the market? Coupled with the bad governance that the people that we have in power, they don't know how to put things in place. They don't know how to take proactive. Our borders have been closed for a very long time now, and we have shortage of food. People cannot go to their farm to plant their, and even the one they planted have been uprooted even before the harvest. So how do you think that we not run into shortage of food? Then on the issue of this Loretta, don't see any reason. The only reason why he's been nominated as to be INEC personnel is just for her to go ahead to make sure that they win a 2023 election. That one, there's no two ways about it. I don't see any reason why anybody that loves this country will say that this woman can have the right to do that.
Thank you very much, Madam Queen Radio Mama. I would have thought that you will be on Loretta's side, because I mean we're trying to meet up the 35% affirmation action towards women. I mean in favor of women. However, Nigerians are very skeptic, as we'll have it. I mean, you leave out when in doubt. Like in my profession, they will always say that Loretta's case shouldn't have even come up because she's a card carrying member, and again because we are very, very, very suspicious people. We don't want to look at the quality a person has. We look at his alliances. Yet another caller. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Hello?
Yeah, so this is Maurice Ayuba.
I'm struggling to hear you. Can you speak a bit louder?
This is Maurice Ayuba.
All right, Maurice Ayuba, quickly, where are you calling us from? Let's get your thoughts. Moses Ayuba. Quickly, please. Thank you.
The issue of this Loretta.
All right, now we are not focusing on Loretta. The program is not about a Loretta here. We're looking at internal democratic systems in our country. And if you had listened to us earlier, we talked about the cost of inflation and also the cost of commodities in the country. Please, I want us to limit the conversation on Loretta. Let us look at the internal democratic practices that we have as a country. Can you help us do that, Mr. Moses? All right, yes. So please, today is not, we are advocating for good governance, and one of the things we are looking at on this program is the internal democratic, especially the selection process of political leaders. How do we get the best from all of this situation we have as a people? Now, again, this is a solution-driven program. Now, before we wrap up the program, I want to even ask our guest here now let's begin to profile solutions now to even the selection processes and some of these issues we are having.
I think it's very important that we understand that democracy will not thrive in the absence of strong institutions. There are institutions that are central to the practice of the democracy that we want to have. And as long as those institutions are not strengthened, as long as there are loopholes in those institutions, as long as the court is allowed to decide the victory of a political participator, these are the loopholes where people have elected by the ballot box, and then a group of 4 or 5 wise men decide who actually allocates of Imo State. These are some of the loopholes. So the judiciary, for example, needs to stand up to its game, to its acts. The judiciary must be held liable. The conversation around independence, autonomy for the judiciary, which is still an ongoing process despite what I call Pyrrhic victory that they've recorded, is very important. Security is pretty much very important. Somebody said something, and as jovial, as humorous list as it were, these are the things that bring us to a nation where we are at the moment, and that is the fact that we have a situation where hunters are the ones who go for terrorists, while soldiers and policemen are left to carry ballot boxes. So the electoral process has to be seen as a civic duty, not a war. It's quite interesting that we talk about conversations around security on election day, and all of a sudden governors have authority over local police. But then when it talks about security over farmlands, over the people, governors suddenly don't have authorities. These are some of the questions that need to be addressed. The structure itself needs to change. Let me say this as a matter of statistics and as a matter of fact. Pre-1999 to 2020, we've had over 216 registered political parties, registered, deregistered. We've had about 516 apply at different stages and get to the several stages. There are certain things that we need to shed off. Some of us are of the opinion that the system in which the federal government, and I say this with a sense of a smile, the damsel in the studio is looking at me while I'm smiling. I don't understand a system where, for example, the APC is the government at the center. It provides funding because it's at the government of the state through INEC. Then INEC provides that fund for other political party. It's just weird.
Structures. Let's look at structures.
Yeah, so we need to look at those structures with the aim of panel beating them. There is a need to remove some of this because they are no longer functional. They cannot be sustainable. We need to look at that going back to the regions where regional parties are stronger. We don't necessarily need one large party. We need strong leaders, not large parties. For African countries, let's not go too far, that have been successful to a large extent. They've been able to provide strong leadership. Mandela, Tanzania, the Mozambican experience. You see, these are countries that have provided strong leadership. It's not strong political party system. The ANC is not a strong political party system after the demise of Nelson Mandela. And Thabo Mbeki left. We now saw what it has become. So it's not just parties can be strong at regional level and represent a lesser people. But you see, when you create this larger than life mighty powers, what you have are constructs for ripping apart the state itself. And so you would see people who in the morning are APC members, in the afternoon they will be PDP, and when eventually one of those parties clinch the coveted post, they go back to that same party, sadly as it is. So there needs to be a reconstruct. It is important that we have that reconstruct.
So let's put it this way. We will continue this conversation by the grace of goodness. Should I get your buy-in on that?
I can't say no.
All right. Thank you very much for not saying no. However, please, the listeners, this has been the size of our package today on building bridges. Now we have got our strong asks for this segment. For this program today. Now we need strong institutions, and like he has rightly said, and we all agree that our judiciary needs to be strong. Our judiciary needs to be independent. Again, we will be driving the ball back to the selection process, where people have to be involved in every step, especially from the political parties. And I hope by the grace of God, next week we should hash that issue out. On behalf of the entire team at Tech and Peace Desk, my name is John Red, and I ask that we do this again by the grace of God, same time next week. Thank you very much, Prince Charles, for coming.
Thank you so very much.